Arizona Wildlife Views, brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Welcome to Arizona Wildlife Views. I'm Jim Paxson. You ever wonder how those wildlife photographers get such amazing photos? Well, tonight we're going to show you how. Then we'll go up to Alamo Lake, where a dedicated group of volunteers has worked hard to make it a safer and cleaner recreation experience. Our Bass Pro will give us another tip on catching some of those big old bass in Lake Pleasant. But first, let's go to our newest game and fish wildlife area. It's closer than you think.
In its heyday, the Horseshoe Ranch of Bloody Basin was one of the largest and finest cattle ranches in central Arizona. It dates back to the early 1880s, when its cattle roamed all the way from the Bradshaw Mountains to the Verde River. Today, the ranch headquarters appears as a valley oasis poised on the edge of the spectacular, rugged, semi-desert mesa country that surrounds it. The ranch has a storied history reflective of the coming of age of Arizona itself, but its future had been uncertain. Now, thanks to a combination of partnerships and good timing, the property is under the stewardship of the Arizona Game and Fish Commission, where its future will be assured.
The department had the opportunity to acquire this property to utilize it as not only a wildlife area, but also to retain the allotment portion of the ranch to be used for habitat restoration in the future. The Horseshoe Ranch acquisition was a long process. We feel really honored to be able to buy this property. The history of the ranch goes clear back into the 1900s, where this was a working ranch, and it has been operated by several managers over the years, both as a working cattle ranch, at one time as a dude ranch, where folks were brought in from all over the country, as well as some international groups, to enjoy this real diverse area as a dude ranch.
This diversity and beauty wasn't only recognized by the ranch owners. The uniqueness of the area, coupled with an abundance of prehistoric sites, caused President Clinton to set aside 71,000 acres as the Agua Fria National Monument, which is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. Horseshoe Ranch now sits square in the middle of the National Monument.
The property itself has historic petroglyphs adjacent to the main house that folks can go and see, and has a lot of historical significance. The monument in general has one of the largest historical, cultural opportunities in this entire Southwest. The La Plata ruins sit immediately to the east of us, as well as many other identified areas that are open to the public to go and visit. They are managed by the Bureau of Land Management, and they provide an outdoor classroom for students.
The monument itself contains one of the most significant systems of late prehistoric sites in the American Southwest. Between AD 1250 and 1450, the area's Pueblo communities were populated by up to several thousand people. At least 450 prehistoric sites are known to exist within the monument area, and there are likely many more. The monument also contains outstanding biological resources. The diversity of vegetative communities, pristine riparian habitat, topographical features, and relative availability of water provide habitat for a wide array of sensitive species and other wildlife. The acquisition entailed two separate pieces. This 200-acre base property, which includes the main ranch house, several smaller houses from its dude ranch days, a pond, pastures, corrals, cattle chutes, and a large barn. The property comes complete with a barn cat and a ranch dog. The ranch is fenced and has a very ample water supply, and this portion will be utilized as a wildlife area with many uses and opportunities for the public to enjoy.
I think it's absolutely going to be a real opportunity. It's only 45 minutes from the valley. We have the opportunity to bring folks up, including school kids, for one day to offer programs that they might not otherwise get in the valley. There's a lot of opportunities. And the second and probably more important part of the acquisition included 70,000 acres of public managed lands. Half is on the Bureau of Land Management jurisdiction, half on the Tonto National Forest. And these properties are going to allow us to work with our agency partners, BLM, Tonto National Forest, as well as a lot of other groups and interested parties to manage a lot of that historic grassland toward the benefit of a lot of species, one of which is pronghorn.
All wildlife in the area will benefit from keeping this vast landscape intact, avoiding fragmentation from development. Besides the large herd of pronghorn, the monument and ranch are home to a wide range of animals from javelina to mountain lions, and the ever-present Gila monster. Endangered species found here include Gila top minnow and desert pupfish. The ranch also includes what the Audubon Society has designated as an important birding area because of its close proximity to the Agua Fria River and Silver Creek, which runs through the property.
It's important to note that the allotment portion of this ranch is going to focus on many different habitat objectives, one of which is pronghorn management. We've identified through prior research that pronghorn need large expanses of open area, particular stubble height at different times of the year, as well as important corridors to move between different key areas. So one of the focuses has been in the past to make sure that these corridors are open through management prescriptions such as burning, juniper thinning, other projects that have occurred on this ranch, and we expect those to continue.
Arizona Game and Fish is in the process of developing plans to manage the wildlife area as well as develop the programs it will offer here. The Horseshoe Ranch is beginning a new chapter in its history, and its legacy as a working cattle ranch is also going to continue.
Very important that the department work with our land agencies partners to continue a level of livestock grazing on this property. We have every intent to make this a working ranch. We're going to do that in a way that meets resource objectives, but it's very important that we keep that particular part of the operation going.
It took a lot of partners to put the $3.3 million deal together to purchase the ranch and the allotment, and this was accomplished without using any taxpayer money. The majority of funding came from the Heritage Fund and a U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant. The Arizona Antelope Foundation and the Wild Turkey Federation also contributed money they raised from raffling special big game tags. The Trust for Public Land was also instrumental in the acquisition when they stepped in and prevented the ranch from being foreclosed on, which provided Game and Fish time to buy the property.
I think what I like best about this place is the variety of species that occur right here on the ranch. We've got an important birding area. We have sensitive species, riparian obligate species. We've got pronghorn. We have almost all central Arizona species represented on this ranch.
Thanks to the partnerships formed by the Arizona Game and Fish Commission, this unique property will belong to all Arizonans from now on. Arizona Wildlife Views magazine showcases some of the finest wildlife photography in the state, and their annual wildlife calendar issue is one of their most popular. Every year, they hold a contest in search of the best wildlife photos for the calendar. In 2012, Bruce Taubert had 2 photographs selected, including the grand prize cover shot. So we asked him for some tips on being a successful wildlife photographer.
Well, I must say that I was ecstatic when Julia Hammond called me and told me that my coyote in the snow had received a place on the calendar this year, 2012, as of December. And then I was even more happy when she told me that my Townsend's big-eared bat, drinking water, was a grand prize and that it was going to be on the cover of the Arizona Wildlife Views magazine. Well, the grand prize is a really fun picture to take. It's a Townsend's big-eared bat drinking water with a nice reflection on it. If you look real close, you can see there's tadpoles in the water. The problem there is really technologically, how do you get a photograph of an animal that's flying maybe 30 miles an hour when it hits the water, just as it hits the water, to get a nice reflection and a good picture? Well, you have to really get some kind of unique equipment. Well, you have a camera, obviously. You have a tripod, which everyone has, supposedly. You have a bunch of flashes, but you have to use an infrared trip. So the real trick is you put the infrared trip across the water, because you know the bat's going to fly in this way and take a drink of water because you found yourself a real small place where you know where the bats are coming. So you put the infrared beam across the water, and then when the bat crosses the water, comes to take a drink, hits the infrared beam, all the flashes go off, and voila, you're focused right where the infrared beam is set. So you get a nice in-focus photograph of the bat coming in to drink the water. Hopefully you get a nice reflection and everything is framed properly. The hard way to discuss it is you spend 5 or 6 nights in the desert at night, all night long, at a water tank with the bees and the bugs and all the insects and all that stuff, waiting there for a bat to come in and drink water. Now you'll get maybe 15 to 20 photographs an hour, or maybe every 2 hours. It maybe took me 3 years at the water holes to get that one particular picture. I got a lot of pictures during that time, a lot of photographs, but it took me a long time to get that particular photograph. And it's a gem, I really do like it. Well, a coyote in the snow is much harder than the bat drinking. You know where the bat's going to be, so you just put yourself there. You don't know where a coyote is going to be, ever. And how do you put a coyote in the same place and then get some nice weather around it, some nice sunlight, some nice snow, some nice rain to give it more than just a coyote sitting there looking off into the distance? Well, I had a good friend that lives down in Oracle, and he has some horses and he has some hunting dogs. And the coyotes go by the horse pen and the hunting dog pen trying to scavenge up maybe a little bit of extra horse feed or maybe a little bit of extra dog feed in their daily run. They seem to do that in the morning after my friend feeds the animals. So I watch the weather fronts, and when the weather fronts tell me there's going to be snow where I want to have snow, then I get my tail out of bed, 2 o'clock in the morning, I drive down to where there's going to be snow, I get my blind, I set up, and I wait. But I got lucky. Maybe the 5th or 6th time, the coyote came through. I gave just a slight whistle and he kind of stopped, looked off to the distance a little bit, and I took the photograph. And luckily the wind was blowing. I used a little bit of a slow shutter speed so I get that snow kind of drifting through. Instead of pinpoints, you notice that the snows are little dashes, so I think that adds a little bit to it. The first thing that you need to do, my advice, is to get to learn your equipment. Really know that camera. Know how to operate the camera under different circumstances. It's sometimes easy to get close to wildlife, but you've got to know how to handle environmental situations, sunlight, shadows, rain, snow, fog, daylight, nighttime, in order to take a good photograph of an animal. So really get to know that equipment. And you've got to somehow get in your mind a feel for where the animal is going to be, and not just take a photograph of the animal in situ sitting there looking at you, kind of a portrait type of photo, but try to get it doing some action. But under both circumstances, I plan these photographs way ahead of time. I didn't get up this morning and say it's snowing, I'm going to go get a coyote photograph. It doesn't happen that way, it's not going to work for you. So know your equipment and really study the wildlife, and you'll have a lot better chance of getting a good photograph. I get 10 or 15 photos that I can look at and say, wow, that wow me, that I can look at and say, boy, I finally did something that I really enjoy myself. I get a lot of good photos because since I retired, that's just about all I'm doing is taking photographs and kind of doing like every hunter really wants to do. I'm hunting every day. I'm looking for something every day. I'm awake at night reading books on biology of different animals, and I wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about what I'm going to do the next day. If you get psyched about it, if you can force yourself to learn a lot about the biology, if you can really learn to use that camera gear, then you're going to start to get those wild pictures, 10 or 15 a year. The one thing about contests is it forces you to push your limits. And anything that'll force you to push your limits is positive in photography. You can take photographs all your life and show them to your friends and your friends will say, oh wow, you are really good, this is a nice photograph. But when you enter a contest and you have professionals like they have at the Arizona Game and Fish Department judging your work, and then they say your work is good, then you can start to think, well, maybe my work is good, maybe I'm doing the right things, maybe all my work is getting me to the right endpoint. When I first started taking pictures, I showed them to friends and they said I was good. And then I started showing them to editors and they say, you need a lot of work, Bruce. So contests, photo clubs, anything that gets you to step out of your comfort zone, out of your box, and have other individuals evaluate your work is really going to make you a better photographer. And then when you do get a grand prize like I did, you get a lot of satisfaction. A lot of people are going to see that photograph. They're going to realize that Bruce Taubert spent an awful lot of hard work and effort to get to that point. And you get a self-satisfaction. It's like doing a good job at any profession. When your equals pat you on the back, you feel real good. So when the editors at the magazine patted me on the back and gave me the prizes, I said, well, I'm getting there. I'm really feeling comfortable because people that I look up to are telling me that I'm getting pretty good.
It's a beautiful March morning up on Alamo Lake. People are launching their boats and expectations are high that they'll catch a lot of garbage. For 13 years, wildlife manager Stuart Conkey has been leading a group of volunteers who pick up trash around this lake that others leave behind.
We started this project because actually our license agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers was coming due, and they were concerned about the amount of trash that was on Alamo Lake. And so we came up with this idea to get the bass clubs and volunteers involved in cleaning up the lake, and it's been a huge success.
Volunteers not only contribute their sweat equity, but they also bring their own boats and off-highway vehicles to the project.
We first started out with mostly people just bringing their boats, and it was just basically to pick up the shoreline trash. And through the years, I have a bunch of winter visitors that stay close to the Wayside Inn, and they've been a really big help. And so now I've got a whole kind of an army of people on quads, and they come out and they help out picking up areas that we can't really get to by boat.
Alamo Lake is a prime bass fishing location, but the area also has plenty of camping and day use facilities. Located about 35 miles north of Wendon in La Paz County, the 2,700-acre lake attracts thousands of visitors each year. Unfortunately, not all of them clean up after themselves.
When we first started 13 years ago, we would have 5 to 6 dump truck loads full of trash in one day. And over the years, each year it's been getting less. One of my philosophies has always been, if people find it clean, they have a tendency to leave it clean. So each year it seems like we're getting less and less. Now it's just basically, you know, a dump truck and a half full of trash each year.
With his son Chance helping him today, Stuart patrols the lakeshore collecting everything from discarded tires to old buoys. He also stops to pick up other volunteers' filled bags and resupply them with fresh ones. Sadly, there is plenty of trash to fill them up.
A lot of the stuff for the last few years has been just the stuff you find floating, you know, cans, bottles, that sort of thing. This year we found several seats from boats, we found some old fishing poles. Most of the guys, they're kind of looking for the lures that are stuck in the trees and stuff. Some guys have found some pretty good lures, some Lucky Craft, some real expensive lures and stuff, so they're pretty happy about that.
I found a Lucky Craft crankbait.
Did you?
Like brand new. First thing I found.
That's about a $20 lure.
Yeah,
right
those
there.
are like $15, $20 lure.
We got a battery and we found a propane tank.
Strangest thing I found was about 50 yards off the shore, up on a beaten path. It was a sprayer for chemicals. I'm not exactly sure what it was for or why it would be up here, but like killing weeds or, you know, pesticide. It didn't make sense to me.
There's certain times, you know, it really gets frustrating in the spring of the year, like right after I have all these volunteers out cleaning up the lake, And then right like about Easter weekend, which will be in a couple of weeks, next thing you know, I've even had people that bag their trash, they just leave their bag out here. It's like, if you're gonna bring a bag out here, bag up your trash, please, pack it in, pack it out. I have guys that have been out here cleaning up for 2 or 3 months, putting in hundreds of hours, and then to come out and overnight, somebody can leave a bunch of trash. It just it makes me fairly upset.
A lot of these volunteers have been coming to this event for years, and even though picking up trash all day may not sound like much fun, Stuart makes sure everybody gets something special out of it.
I usually try to have a door prize raffle for everybody. It's free. I try to make sure that everybody goes home with a little prize, and then I also get donations for a free steak dinner. So it's a little bit of work, it's a lot of fun, and we also leave everybody with a good meal.
When the day was over, 2 large trash trucks were filled, and the anglers on Alamo Lake can go back to worrying more about how many bass they'll catch instead of how many beer cans they'll reel in.
Yourself up there in all this wind. Yeah.
The influence of this lake is the rising and falling. It's a very dramatic deal at times. For example, in the wintertime, the lake's rising maybe an inch or 2 a day. That means within the course of a week, it's come up a foot. These fish adjust accordingly with this. Moreover, probably the toughest time to actually make dramatic changes on this lake is summer. This is a municipal source of water now. This lake can go down 18 inches per day. I got friends that live back east. I call a buddy of mine in Pennsylvania and say, how's the fishing? He tells me, man, fishing's been awesome, but the lake came down an inch and we can't buy a bite. So if 1 inch will influence a natural lake, and this lake drops 18 inches a day, there's some serious changes that these fish have to do constantly. If they like 16 feet of water, for example, that's the comfort zone, that's where the groceries are. Where the groceries are, people shop. Meaning groceries is like your threadfin shad, your crayfish. So if today the fish were positioned in 16 feet of water and we were in the middle of summer, okay, tomorrow that positioning is going to be 18 inches lower. So you have to adjust accordingly. Now, for the local people that want to know how do I know this, it's very simple. You can get on the Arizona Game and Fish site. You can go in and check those water levels. Another way that's simpler is when you come to the lake and you come through the pay stations, just ask them. Ask them what the levels are, and more importantly, ask them what these pumps here, due west of me, are doing. If they're low, 200-300 cubic feet a second, the influence is less dramatic. If they're 2,000, 4,000 cubic feet a second filling, you need to adjust accordingly. But that is the deal. In a nutshell, the rising and falling and the clarity of this lake makes this lake a tough lake to fish. Once you understand that, you make the adjustments, 50, 60 fish days, I promise you.
Even in wildlife conservation, the saying, "the sum of the whole is greater than the parts," holds true. Successful wildlife conservation involves not just those tasked directly with managing wildlife, but also those agencies responsible for overseeing the land they live on, the roadways they cross, the water they drink, among many other facets. As Arizona's human population grows and creates the need for development throughout our state, partnership or cooperative conservation plays an increasingly important role in protecting wildlife and preserving wildlife areas for both the animals and public enjoyment. The Arizona Game and Fish Department works with partners including federal, state, and local government, private organizations, conservation agencies, and Native American tribes. Partnership conservation successes are numerous. In the late 1980s, there were only 22 California condors left in the wild. But now, thanks to a cooperative recovery effort between Game and Fish, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management, and the nonprofit Peregrine Fund, more than 70 of North America's largest flying land bird grace Arizona's skies. Apache trout, one of only 2 trout native to our state, were once nearing extinction. After years of work by partners, including Game and Fish, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, White Mountain Apache Tribe, and the U.S. Forest Service, Apache trout have now been delisted to threatened on the endangered species list and have been recovered to a point that anglers can now fish for them in designated waters.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Visit our website for more information on Arizona Game and Fish and anything you've seen in tonight's episode. I'm Jim Paxson in Colorado with producers Gary Schaefer and Carol Lynn. We'll see you next week.